Hello, welcome to this series about the books and the movies that have influenced the crime books that we write. My name's Martine Bailey, and I'd like to tell you a book that really inspired me to write historical crime and led to my eventually becoming a member of the Crime Writers Association. In the 1980s, I studied for a degree in English Lit, and I especially loved what I think of as dark mysteries. So Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, Henry James's Turn of the Screw, and of course Edgar Allan Poe, the writer of the very first detective story, The Murders on the Rue Morgue. Then in 1984, I read this book. I can see it was priced just £2.50 back then. It's The Name of the Rose by Umberto Eco, and it was everything that I loved in just one book. Firstly, it's a classic murder mystery in which a monk, William of Baskerville, note the Conan Doyle reference to Baskerville Hall, arrives at a snowbound monastery as a kind of philosophical Sherlock Holmes, a genius of observation and deduction, and of course a series of gruesome murders follow. It's typical of the best of the genre in that it's quite elastic. It allows lots of other ideas to be explored. So in particular, the theme of the survival of precious books and knowledge in a time of great ignorance, in the time of the Inquisition. But of course, as well as being a postmodern masterpiece, it features wonderful things like a hidden labyrinth in a forbidden library, where William and Adso go exploring at night and have to solve riddles from that great source of riddles, the Book of the Revelation. And I found it all incredibly rich and brilliant. And I really liked the idea of what I then called, in my pretentious English lit way, a metafiction. And that's a book that really calls attention to the fact that it's been written. For example, The Name of the Rose in the book is actually a found document written by Adso later on in time. So when I wrote my first historical crime book, I really wanted it to sort of take that form of being a found book. And An Appetite for Violets was about an 18th century cook who gets caught up in a murderous grand tour to Europe. And it's been written based on old country household books. So there are lots of recipes in there, a packing list of what they take on the journey. And the style is very much Biddy Lee's travel journey as she crosses Europe and begins to realise that at some point someone's going to get murdered. Similarly, the idea for my most recent book, The Almanack, came from real books, and here's a very fragile Vox Stellarum from 1778. It's written by Francis Moore, it says, Old Moore, who is of course still in print despite the fact that he died even long before this book was printed. Now these were some of the most popular books ever printed. They outsold the Bible at various times, and because they were calendars, they're astronomical charts, astrological charts, but the thing that was the big selling point for them was of course the predictions. So here every year they had a hieroglyphic image of the coming year, and in this one we can see some doves holding olive branches in their mouths, so presumably peace is on its way, and we get a little verse of Nostradamus. Now, as well as predictions, the other big appeal of almanacs was riddles. We're talking about a time of riddle mania in the 18th century. Everybody was writing them and loved pursuing them as an entertainment in the evening. So we had Jane Austen wrote Emma, which is in a way a series of riddles to be solved. Jonathan Swift and our old friend Edgar Allan Poe as well a little later. So in the Almanack, each chapter of the book opens with one of 50 historical riddles. And I really felt it was interesting to look at the riddle, who am I? in a way and compare it to the whodunit, which asks exactly the same question. So I like the idea that in a way we're all part of the same pattern here. So the book is set in 1752 when the calendar actually lost 11 days. So there was a lot of confusion. It was a bit like our millennium bug days when nobody knew quite what was going to happen, and there was actually some confusion there. And the main sleuth in the book is a former prostitute named Tabitha Hart, who has come home from her scandalous life in London to visit her mother, only to find that she has purportedly drowned. And looking at her mother's almanack, she sees that, like a lot of country people, she's left notes in them. And these turn out to be cryptic clues as to who the killer is who has terrorised her. Now, very shortly, the Almanack will be followed up by yet another novel featuring Tabitha, the prophet, in which a religious sect, a prophet, again, giving out prophecies of what's about to happen, including murders, and that will be coming out in February 2021. It's been really great to think about how my early reading has influenced my career as a crime writer. And I hope this series has got you thinking about your particular inspirations and your favourite books. So thank you very much for listening. Goodbye. Leave it on.